Ready? All right, good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to the Rotary Club of Brentwood. We are pleased that there's a lot of people in this room, and that is exciting. My name is Jennifer Bourne. I'm your fearless leader this year. Thank you. Today, our inspirational message will be led by Laura Troop, our pledge and four-way test by Steve Tate. Let's bow.
God of wisdom and compassion, we come before you today, grateful for the blessings we enjoy, blessings we did not earn and too often take for granted. As we gather as the Rotary Club of Brentwood, we ask that you shape our hearts to reflect the words of Philippians 2, that we would look not only to our own interests, but also to the interests of others. Forgive us for the times when we've been comfortable in our routines, focused on our own concerns, or content to stay inside our Brentwood bubble. Open our eyes to the needs around us, the needs in our city, in our state, and in a world where most people do not live with the abundance we experience every day. Stir in us a spirit of service that is genuine and humble. Give us the courage to step toward people and places we might overlook. Help us use our resources, our influence, and our time in ways that honor you and lift up our neighbors. As we begin this meeting, renew in us the heart of Rotary, service above self, not as a slogan, but as a way of living that reflects your love in practical, meaningful ways. Amen.
Let's all face the flag and hands over your heart, and please remove your hats. Thank you very much. And let's play the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the United States of America, to the republic which stands one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. And now let's recite the four-way test. We as Rotarians hopefully will not only live this professionally, but individually as well. Number one. Can I put my hat back on? Yes, you can, sir. Yes, sir. Good. Okay, number one. And number two. And number three.
Good.
And number four.
Beneficial to all concerned. We certainly hope so. All right, we have a lot to accomplish in a short amount of time today. So we are going to kick it off real quick with introduction of guest by Jennifer Shepard.
Hi, everybody. Welcome. I'm Jennifer Shepard, and we've got a lot of visitors and guests today. I'm going to start right here at this table. Standing again. He works with Patrick and me over at InSpain. Thank you for being here. And also at this table, we have Linda Payne, who many of you met last week. You may have already known her. She works with Studio Bank, and she is now in our membership pipeline. So we're glad. And we have Derby Jones from the Williamson Herald. And the Villers family. Do you have your own? Do you have a whole table over here? Okay. Let me see if I can. Here, you want to run?
My wife Katie, my sister-in-law Kim, my brother-in-law Chip, Wayno Curry from Elton, my nephew Jay, my father-in-law Jim.
Welcome. And I was going to say, Nelson, you fall in the category of friends, family, and visiting routine. Totally glad to have you. And speaking of friends and family, we've got Jeff Bourne, who has been, and he's going to be doing the shrimp boil for our, in June, we're having our social at their house. It's going to be, apparently my husband got volunteered for that too. Wilmer Sterling. Where are you? Way over here. Wilmer Sterling, thank you for being here. And I haven't gotten a chance to get to know anything about you, but we'll find out about you later. And then we have David Comer from the Franklin Newton Club, which may or may not have something to do with the rodeo.
Probably.
Yeah.
Also, personal friend of Steve Tate, so clear credit.
You really want to advertise that? And we have the famous or infamous Lynn Tucker from Williamson Inc. and the Brentwood Morning Club. And Charles has a guest, Bryant Bales, who came to Pancake Day, and that's where we met, right? Thank you. And then I know we've got our speaker will be introduced separately, but I wanted to introduce Mrs. Rebecca Gonzalez. Thank you for being here. And I found out she's also a reformed banker, so you're in good company here.
Is that everybody? All right. Okay, so I have told you many times over the last year, if you make the mistake of showing up on your birthday or close to it, we are going to sing happy birthday to you. So I would like to say Derby with a birthday today. If Bob Searcy is here, today's his birthday too. I don't think he made the mistake of showing up, but yeah. And John Thompson, tomorrow is his birthday. So you guys ready? Happy birthday. Derby didn't know that. He's never coming back to visit again. Okay, so we are going to kick off our announcement session. I would like to bring up Jim Villers. He is going to be doing a very special moment with us today. So here you go.
We are going to give out a community service award, and I felt it appropriate that our mayor and morning Rotarian would do the honors for us. So will you allow Nelson Andrews to come up, please?
Yeah, thank you.
Hey, y'all. So it is my pleasure to do a Rotary Community Service Award for Jim Red. And it's funny, when they told me I was doing this for Mr. Red, I really thought to adequately do it, we would need the entire time today. So find out I'm one of, I think, 3 speakers. So we'll go ahead and run through this. How many of y'all know Mr. Red personally? Show of hands. Yeah, a good part of the room. So some of the things, Mr. Red founded air conditioning service in 1959, moved to Brentwood in the mid-60s with his family, Francis and his 2 daughters, Kim and Jamie, who are both here, and then had his son Chip when they got here, who's also with us today. Member of Brentwood Civitan Club, Brentwood Chamber of Commerce, Williamson County Board of Equalization, Board of Trustees for Belmont, sponsored exchange students through Brentwood Rotary, Diana Orcus and Hilda Verduga. And Diana, they're still family friends. She lives in Washington, D.C. And I mentioned all that because I think that is enough to win a Rotary Consumer, Rotary Community Service Award. And that's not even what I'm going to be talking about. Mr. Red has been here and has done so much for our community. It's incredible. And the amazing thing is the 3 things I'm going to talk about today all began in 1969, and they're all still paying dividends for our community to this day, which is an amazing track record. And when I say they started in 1969, Mr. Red has been integral and involved in this community the entire time from before 1969 right through to today. So the first one, first but not most from an important way, he is one of the founders of the city of Brentwood. So not everybody knows, but there was a point in around 1968 where there was an organization called the Williamson County Quarterly Court. And that was the group that went through and kind of, I guess, operated as the version of the county commission back in the day. But they approved Kroger and a Super X right on Franklin Road in Brentwood, right where CVS Pharmacy currently is. And for some of us remember still when that was the Kroger. With not as so much as a hey, heads up to anyone living in Brentwood. And they were over at Nobles, which is a very old-fashioned thing to say. He and a group of business people were at Nobles doing what everyone did over there, which is talk about the community and what's going on here. And they said, we need a seat at the table. And they started talking about how Brentwood ought to be a city. And so Mr. Red and this group of business people went through and started doing the research, and they put together an investigative committee, studied the different forms of government, And critically, they landed on the city manager commission form of government for the city of Brentwood, which is what we have to this day. And that is significant because it's a form of government where you don't have a direct elected mayor and you don't have wards or districts. Everybody on the commission represents the entire city of Brentwood, which is critical to the health of the community and the way we do things, because it makes for a very collaborative process. They looked at the way elections are run, where multiple people are running in the same race, but people can vote for more than one person. It's not a head-to-head race, which also leads to kind of the community tradition and more of the tone that we have as a very collegial city commission for the most part. So going through this whole thing was a big deal, but it didn't stop there. So as they formed Brentwood and got this put together, Mr. Red was one of the original planning commissioners. And that's important because we didn't have an original planning code or plan for land use. Mr. Red is one of the folks that put together the land use program that we still have in place with our density, with our business districts, the way they're set up, critically with the OSRD zoning, which I mean, I feel like it's fairly innovative to this day. I can't imagine how innovative it was when they put it in place 50 years ago. But that's a zoning that allows for an average of one household per acre across a large space that allows them to include open space into that. So that's how we get neighborhoods like Raintree, McGavitt Farms, Brentwood Country Club, and many others. So coming through doing that, and then also, chapter 2 of that was in the mid-'80s. Some folks thought it was a good idea to maybe change our form of government, to have a direct elected mayor and have districts. So he put together and was one of the leaders of a group called Citizens for Brentwood. And he went back and told the story again and reminded people why our system of government is so important. And they very successfully defended it. And that's held to this day. But I do want to remind everybody what a big deal this is, because I think it's critical to the tone of our community. So you would think that, founding Brentwood and setting the land use policies, is that enough to get a community service award? Well, second part of 3, he is one of the founders of Civitan Youth Baseball, which many of y'all maybe know now as Brentwood Ball Club. So he was the president of the Brentwood Civitan in 1969, and son Chip, I guess, was starting to look into baseball. And Mr. Red was, I believe the title was an all-city baseball player in the city of Nashville, where he grew up, and is a huge fan. So he went out and once again did the research, talked to some other existing ball clubs that were very successful, and put together the Civitan fields and the Civitan ball field, and even to the point of, to help get it established, built a practice field and a batting cage in the field next to his house, and allowed his team that he coached himself as well as other teams practice there. So, I mean, talk about skin in the game. So he kind of willed youth baseball into existence for the city of Brentwood. And I imagine most of us that grew up here played at least a few games over on Civitan Fields over there on Concord Road. So you'd think, okay, is that enough? Founding the city, founding the youth sports, the original youth sports network in the city. Well, the third thing I want to talk about is Brentwood Baptist Church. So in 1968, Woodmont Baptist in Nashville started a mission out here in Brentwood. And Mr. Red, along with Francis, were 2 of the original members as they took that mission and formed Brentwood Baptist Church. And he was on the original building committee for the facility on Franklin Road, and again on the building committee for the facility where Brentwood Baptist currently is. So I imagine, I know it's a small congregation, not much of a presence here, but for those of y'all familiar with Brentwood Baptist Church, so you think about the 3 legs of this stool, just incredible. And I got to tell you, I knew some of this story, but as somebody who's tried to be involved in the community, and I'm in my honor to serve as your mayor right now, it is incredibly humbling to find out what real commitment and community service looks like in Jim Red. And it is my pleasure to give him this community service award today. And Jim Villers wanted me to make sure to remind all of y'all that Mr. Red has a couple of comments now, but will be hanging around to do a little meet and greet after the end of Rotary. So please, if you have a chance to come visit, please do. And Mr. Red, would you like the microphone?
Well, I don't have a speech prepared, but I really, I'm just overcast by the remembrance and the Rotary Club being so kind to single me out, but there were a lot of folks involved. Brentwood was a very small community, and really the Lord has given me extra time to enjoy the fruition of our work in 1969. But it was a very small community, but we had a lot of important people involved. But we should never forget, there were 5 of us, and the other 4 have passed on. But we should never forget the hard work that they did. But look at Brentwood. Look what has happened to a small community. And like I said, the Lord has given me extra time. I'm 96 now. And to enjoy the work that we did. And thank you so much. And thank the Rotary Club for all they do for Brentwood. Thank you.
All right. How great was that? We haven't done that in 10 years, so I'm really excited that we had the opportunity to do that today. A couple announcements. Tomorrow, Laura, did you want to share a little bit about our activity tomorrow? Last minute, we told you on Monday, so.
That little bitty church that you were talking about, Brentwood Baptist has put together kind of a season of serving, and we've been invited to participate in one of those. They're doing things with Feed My Starving Children, with Both Hands, which works with families that are raising funds for adoption, as well as serving widows in the community. Cultivate is working together with an effort that day as well as Care Portal, which meets tangible needs for foster and adoptive families. We've been invited specifically to participate tomorrow morning with One Gen Away with a mobile food distribution. It is in the parking lot at Brentwood Baptist, and it starts in the morning at 7:30. So I think you'll be able to find it. It's in the parking lot at Brentwood Baptist. Just look for the One Gen big old truck. So come wearing your Rotary shirt if you have one. Otherwise, bring friends. It's an opportunity for us to work together to serve the community and to inspire others to service. Thank you.
Thank you, Laura. If you have nothing to do tomorrow, please come. It's close. We could not have made that more convenient for you guys. Larry, did you want to do anything with the golf tournament? Okay. The last thing before I do the last thing is June 13th. Don't forget, it's the social at my house. I'm going to tell you every week because I really want everybody to come. So we're going to do a shrimp boil, and there will be allergy-friendly options as well. Before we go into Happy Bucks, I asked David to come here today because of the rodeo. Did anybody read Reflections this week? Did anybody catch? Only one person replied. That's why I'm asking. Did anybody catch my little trivia question in Reflections? All right. Awesome.
Good to see y'all are involved.
Yay. I mean, you're RSVPing, so I think we're a step ahead. First question, then we're going to ask the second question. But the question I asked, and I just want to share it with you, is when did the rodeo begin? What year was that? Does anybody in the room know, aside from Mike Huff, who I think was there? That's not the question, Sheila. Nope, but close. Really darn close. You want to give it to him? 1949. So the question for a few tickets to the rodeo on May 14th, if you'd like to go, I purchased some and I would like to give them away. David's going to do a question for you.
I was only 1 year of my parents, so I'm not.
Thanks for clarifying.
It's a really smart crowd. So I'm gonna go, but I am painfully shy. I don't know if that's apparent. So, but in all seriousness, what rodeo is this for us? What number rodeo is this for us? 75. That's right. I guess Sheila got it.
Are you in town May 14th? Who's the second person to answer? Laura? All right.
Nobody wants to go to the rodeo and be with me? I understand. Let's see, I understand.
All right.
All
If
good.
you would like to go to the rodeo, I have 4 tickets, so come see me after the meeting. So I would like to give them away. Okay, next we're gonna go into Happy Bucks. Lori. And we're gonna be
Good af-
quick because we want to get to
Yes.
the program, so.
We're doing this quick, and I'm starting with $5 for our speaker, Alberto Gonzalez. Thank you for being here. What a wonderful man. Thank you for what you've done for our country and for our community. And happy birthday to Derby. All right, who else is happy?
All right. Hi, everybody. I'm doing $6 again. Last week was for May 6th. Today is because I have 6 seats left. I'll start. I didn't do a very good job of selling it last week, I think, because I only heard from 1 or 2 people. Free breakfast at Maribel's this upcoming Wednesday on me. Free breakfast. With the ability to hear our fellow Rotarian from the Nashville chapter, Emily Mitchell from the Atlanta Federal Reserve. She's going to be sharing a lot of really cool information for business owners, executives, as far as stuff that's going on with our economy locally here in Brentwood, as well as for all of Tennessee. So please see me afterwards, or if my email was also in the newsletter, so you can reach me there as well.
Thank you. Who else?
So yesterday my daughter turned 9, so that was great. And then today my wife and I are celebrating our 22nd year of marriage. So only got $2 left.
Everybody happy right here?
I just want to remind everyone to vote on Tuesday. That's all.
Curry, you're going to sing a song for us? Yay to the Red family. Congratulations, Mr. Red.
To get my cash out. I'm doing $4 for July 4th, but it's actually a mention for May 3rd and continue to shout out to Brentwood Baptist Church. I love the music ministry there. Our orchestra concerts are always amazing. And Sunday evening at 6 o'clock is a Celebrate 250 Years of America orchestra concert. So come out at 6 o'clock. If you want more information, just reach out to me.
Like, happy birthday to Tom, that he sings too.
All right, thank you, Lori. All right, it is my pleasure to bring up Dick Bowers, our own Rotarian, and our speaker today, Alberto Gonzalez. Yay.
I got it.
Let's not do it over.
So, welcome, sir. Delighted to have you at Brentwood Rotary, and I expect to see you more often here in the future. But let me start at the beginning, if you will.
Say something.
You certainly may.
Becky, I'm here with my wife, Rebecca. We are Brentwood residents, have been Brentwood residents ever since we came to Tennessee. And so we owed a debt to Jim Red for all of his work and his family. Mr. Mayor, thank you also for your current service. Anyway, we're delighted to be here because this is literally our home. Oh, and we also go to Brentwood Baptist.
So can we start at the beginning? You're a Texan, sorta.
I'm a proud Texan.
Okay.
And when I first came here, I used to brag, of course, that's what Texans do. We brag in my remarks about being a proud Texan. But I stopped after a month or so because every time I did that, there would be a Tennessean or two in the crowd who would tell me it would not be a Texas, but for Tennessee. So those of us from Texas, thank you, Tennessee.
Well, thank you. You grew up outside of Houston in a little town called
Humble, Texas.
Humble, Texas. From a man who's had an incredible career, he comes from Humble, Texas. Tell us about your early days. Tell us about the family and growing up in Humble and how you ended up in the White House and then in Nashville, Tennessee.
Well, I ended up in the White House because of President Bush. But I'll just say that I grew up in a large family, like many of you in this room. I had 7 siblings. My parents were very poor. My dad and his brothers built the house that I grew up in Humble, Texas, in a small 2-bedroom house. We didn't have hot running water the entire time I lived at home. We didn't have a telephone until I was in high school. But that is the story of many families in this country. And my dad worked construction. My mom stayed at home working, raising the family. When I graduated from high school, went to blue collar high school, not much encouragement to go to college. So I did what a lot of men and women did, graduating high school with little prospects of going to college. I enlisted in the service, and I enlisted in the Air Force. And I did that because I really was encouraged by my parents to try to give back to the country in one way or the other. And I felt that would be a good way to do it. You know, there are other veterans in this crowd, and I salute their service, their sacrifice, sacrifice of everything.
And you went to the Air Force and you stayed in the Air Force, but then you got out of the Air Force.
Well, I was in the Air Force for just a couple of years. What happened is my first assignment in the Air Force was to Key West, Florida. This is a story I sometimes tell. Was to Key West, Florida. Oh, wow, I'm 18 years old. I'm hanging out on the beaches with the co-eds. This is really pretty good being in the Air Force. But because of my job in the Air Force, I knew that at some point through my 4-year enlistment, I would get a remote assignment, a hardship assignment. And I grew up with my dad telling me, always do the hard thing first. So with that in mind, when I got my orders to Key West, I turned it down. And so the next set of orders that come down is a remote assignment in Fort Yukon, Alaska, north of the Arctic Circle, with 100 GIs at a radar site. Our job was to watch the Russians. And I was there for about a year. And there I met 2 Air Force Academy graduates who saw something in me and said, you ought to really think about getting an appointment to the academy. And so they helped me get this appointment, and I left Fort Yukon to go to the Air Force Academy with dreams of becoming a fighter pilot. That was my dream at that time, be a fighter pilot.
Wonderful. But that didn't happen. So what happened?
What happened is my eyes turned bad. My eyes turned bad. I knew that wasn't going to happen. I wasn't going to be a fighter pilot. So I decided after 2 years, I would take a chance and transfer to Rice University in Houston. It's a small private school. The reason I chose Rice is because when I was a boy, 15 and 16, I would sell soft drinks at Rice University football games. And I would, after the games, I would always watch the students walking back to the campus, and I would dream about what it would be like to be a Rice student. So I went to Rice, and there at Rice, I got interested in political science and history and things of that nature. But everyone that was going to go majoring in political science was going to go to law school. So I said, okay, I'll go to law school. And did well at Rice, got accepted to Harvard. I did well at Harvard, and when I graduated, I got a job at a big firm in Houston, thinking I was going to stay there for 50 years and make a ton of money.
So you went to Harvard, but you could have gone to Yale. You got accepted at Yale as well, right?
I got accepted at Yale.
This is a man who achieves things.
Well, I just thought the reason I chose Yale is fantastic school, but I thought living in Cambridge and in Boston would be much more exciting than living in New Haven. And it worked out for me, of course. So I made the right decision, but I wanted to go back to Texas. That was always going to be my dream. Go back to Texas, and I achieved that dream.
So after Harvard, somewhere down the road, you met a man named George W. Bush. When was that, and how did that change your life?
I met George W. Bush briefly when his dad was campaigning for president in 1988. This is how old I am. I did something on the campaign or something like that. Oh, and when his dad won the election, I was offered a few positions in the administration, in commerce and veterans affairs, HUD. They were very junior level positions, and quite frankly, I didn't want to leave my firm. I wanted to stay at my firm and make partner. Our firm, which had a history, it was about 50 years old. We had over at the time 350 lawyers. They'd never had a minority partner. And, I just was determined. I want to be the first one. So I stayed at my firm and was successful and became a partner. And I tell you the story about turning down a job in George H.W. Bush administration. I fast forward very quickly. When I first met George W. Bush and he offered me the job to be his general counsel, when he became governor, I went to meet with him in Austin. Sat down, had a good conversation. And at the end of the conversation, I asked the governor, why me? You don't know me. There are 50,000 lawyers in Texas. You could have chosen any one of them. Why me? And he said, well, back in 1988, you turned down my old man for a job. And that was the first time I was exposed to, George W. Bush has a great memory for faces and events. And that's what made him a very good politician. So anyway, he tells me that story, and it was easy to go to work with him, quite frankly.
So you went to work for him and worked for him when he was governor, and then when he became president, you moved on with him, and he asked you to be the White House consul.
Right. I was general counsel for Bush for 3 years, became Secretary of State, and he put me on the.
That's at Texas.
Texas, yes. And then I became a Texas Supreme Court justice. During my second year on the court, of course, he started running for president. A lot of speculation about what was going to happen. A few months before the election, 2000 election, which, as you may remember, was a contested election with Al Gore. President Bush or Governor Bush's roommate came to me and said, "I'm putting together the transition team. If Governor Bush becomes president, we're looking for someone to become the White House counsel. Would you be interested?" Now, I said the diplomatic thing. I said, well, I've got to go home and talk to my wife about this. But I knew immediately, if I get a chance to work in the White House, I'm going to go work in the White House. So obviously, Becky and I watched with a great deal of interest about the recount, because the outcome of that would fundamentally just change the trajectory of our lives. And of course, he wins the election, and we go to Washington. I'm often asked, I'm going to probably speed up some of this stuff. I'm often asked, okay, of all the things you've ever done, which is the best job you ever had? Being Attorney General of the United States is an incredible privilege. You're a cabinet secretary. You're driven around in FBI suburbans, these FBI agents carrying machine guns. You fly around the country and the world in a G5 FBI jet. I mean, it's just incredible. It's incredible to be a cabinet secretary. But being Attorney General is incredibly hard. If you ask anyone who's been in that position how difficult it is to be Attorney General of the United States, but if you're an American citizen and you get to go to work every day in the White House, it just doesn't get any better. It's incredible. I never lost the excitement of being in the White House. Plus, we add on top of that, just being there. I'm working for a man in Texas, great deal of confidence and affection for him, hoping to have him be successful for the American people. And then you add on top of that, we served during 9/11, historical period. And it's a reason why I became a leader. I wanted to live a life where I could really make a difference. Here I am, working in the White House, working for the President of the United States, trying to protect America. I mean, it just doesn't get any better. So it was a great, 4 years that I spent in the White House. And of course, he had points from his attorney general. Can you imagine that?
I think it's wonderful. So what's the difference between being the White House counsel and being the Attorney General?
Well, when you're White House counsel, you're just a staff. Okay,
You're just a staffer in the White House.
just a staffer.
Okay.
You don't have to go to, you never have to go to the Hill to testify. You do have to deal with the media from time to time. But one of the great things about it, I get to see the president almost every day. He's a morning person. I'm a morning person. Generally, my office was on the second floor of the West Wing. Around 7 o'clock, Bush would come in to the Oval Office. I would, drop down to the Oval Office and we would talk about things going on in the world. We'd talk about issues and problems, who he should put on the Supreme Court, things like that. So but nonetheless, you're a staffer. If the president's in the West Wing, you're in the West Wing. Attorney General, there are over 100,000 people that work for you. Okay, their schedule revolves around you, and it's a much different situation. I control my schedule there. In the White House, you don't control your schedule. And you're a cabinet secretary. You're accountable to the American people. It's a much different situation. You're going to go up to the Hill, testify all the time. You're going to have to meet with the media all the time. So it's a much more difficult situation.
To become Attorney General, you have to be confirmed by the Senate. How did you find that process?
I don't think anyone enjoys the process of confirmation. But it's interesting. I had dealt with members of the Senate during my 4 years as White House counsel because with respect to judicial appointments, you have to get home state senators to agree they will return a blue state. They will agree to a hearing. And so I would go up to the Hill all the time and meet with senators, talk to them about judicial appointments, develop a relationship. And so when I became the nominee as Attorney General, I still would have to go up and have these meetings to ask for their vote, but they already knew who I was. And so it was a much richer process. And in fact, the day before the confirmation vote, Chuck Schumer, who was at the time the majority leader, called me and said, listen, he said, I'm not going to vote for you. He said, most of the Democrats aren't going to vote for you, but we know you're going to be confirmed. We look forward to working with you. I mean, that's the way it works. So I thanked him for not voting for me. And, but anyway, so very, very respectful. And that's the way it should be, right? Even if you may have disagreements. That was a time when there was a lot of respect for each other. And that respect builds trust. Trust is important. Agreement. And the issues are so difficult in Washington. You need all that. Otherwise, nothing gets done. I know there are many in this country that believe, well, we don't want our federal government to do anything. Quite frankly, everything should be done at the local, state level. I think the framers had that in mind, and that's why they put all these checks and balances at the federal level. It minimized the actions at the federal level. But also, one of the great things about checks and balances is that it checks power. Power corrupts. We see it all the time. And have these checks and balances to curb ambition. I think it's very, very important, people in public office, that we ensure that power is being used for the benefit of all of us, not for the benefit of themselves and family and their friends. Sorry about the lecture. Okay.
No, it's all right. So you're Attorney General, 9/11 happened. How did that change your work day?
Right. Well, I wasn't Attorney General yet.
Okay. You were still counsel?
It had happened in 2001. So we'd only been in office for a few months. I'll tell you one story, if I could just be for just a second. This is a few months into the Bush administration. I'm in the Oval Office with President Bush, with several of the other members of the senior staff, everyone. And we're just talking, and then I'll have the privilege, he asked me, he says, have you ever been to the residence? No, sir, I've never been to the residence. I said, well, would you like to go to the residence? Well, what do you say when the president invites you on? I said, Esther, I would love to see the residents. So we walk over past the Rose Garden, up to over to the east wing, and he takes me up to the second floor, and he shows me his bedroom, which I'm sure Laura didn't appreciate. Shows me the bedroom, shows me his private study, shows me where he works out. And then we walk out to the tribune balcony, which overlooks the South Lawn. You go down the South Lawn, it's a Washington Monument, look down that, Jefferson Memorial. This was in April, before 9/11. And it was still very cool in Washington. I remember it was blue skies. And momentarily, since we just observed, vision here, and we didn't say anything. I still remember, I can hear the cars honking as they go by the Washington Monument. Finally, I got uncomfortable with the silence. Sometimes I'm uncomfortable with the silence. And even though I knew this man, I got uncomfortable, and I asked him, the first thing that pops in my head, how does it feel to be president, Mr. President? Which is the dumbest question to ask him, right? It's like a sophomore question. And he laughs, just like all of you. And he says, it is incredibly cool. And I remember I had two distinct feelings at that moment. One, such pride. This man that I'd known from our days in Texas is president of the United States. Wow. But I also felt a little bit sadness knowing that how special that moment was. Andy Card, President Bush's first chief of staff, used to say, if you need to see the president, you get to see the president. If you want to see the president, you don't get to see the president. Because the president's time is so valuable. It's meeting after meeting, decision after decision. And, Andy's job as chief of staff is care for feeding and sleep, care of the president. So he was very, very jealous of time that people took from the president. So standing on that balcony, I realized how special that was. And so to conclude the story, before 9/11, we played horseshoes together, president. Before 9/11, we golfed together, president. After 9/11, we never played horseshoes. We never golfed together. The world changed after 9/11 because it's time to focus on something else, which was technology.
So 9/11 happens and
9/11 story. I'm sorry.
you get involved in some controversial decisions.
Well, it wasn't just Al Gonzalez.
Well, you were giving advice to the president, right?
Sure, I was asked this question recently about how was the decision making on legal issues made in the Bush White House. This is the way it would work. Let's say whether it's interrogations, Guantanamo, surveillance, you name it, anything that's controversial, this is the way it would work. The issue would be brought to me in terms of what authority does the President of the United States have as Commander-in-Chief in the title of the say. I would then gather up general counsels of the various agencies. There would be the CIA General Counsel, DOD General Counsel, NSA General Counsel, Department of State General Counsel. I would bring in all the general counsels plus senior representatives of the Department of Justice. And we would sit in my office in the West Wing, and we would talk about the legal issue. Okay, what is the legal authority? What's binding on this president, on this administration? There would be a representative as I said, from the Department of Justice, often the Attorney General or the Deputy Attorney General. And at the end of the discussion, and as you might imagine, lawyers disagree. And on these very difficult issues, there was always disagreement. But at the end, I'd always turn to the Attorney General and say, okay, now heard the discussion. It was important for him. You are charged, the Attorney General is charged by law to render advice with the executive branch, and it is your department, Mr. Attorney General, who's going to defend it when we're sued in court. So you have the final word. And whatever the Attorney General says, that's it in terms of legal position. I would then have a discussion with the president. He'd be very curious. Okay, was it unanimous? What did people say? And I would tell him, okay, because he had confidence, extra confidence in some of the lawyers in that room. But then I would always conclude by saying, Mr. President, we're going to follow the advice of the Department of Justice. It's their job to give us advice. They're going to defend it in courts. And he would always follow that advice. That's the way those decisions were made. Now, did I always agree? I would say probably over 90% of the time, I agree with the legal conclusions that we arrived at. And sometimes the president quietly would ask me, "What do you think, Al?" And I would tell him what I think. But I would always conclude, if I differed in the legal advice I was giving him, I would always say, "We're going to follow the Department of Justice." And you would do it. That we were doing our job. I sometimes would ask him, "How can we help you do your job?" And he would say, "Just do your job. Just do your job."
And you did your job, and you got pretty well beat up by the Democrats for doing your job.
That's Washington.
That's Washington.
No, listen. When I speak to law students and young lawyers who are interested in public service, and we have people here in public who are in public service or have been in public service, you do the best you can, right? And whether or not you do the right thing or not, someone's going to criticize it. The media is going to write a story that maybe is not fully accurate. That's just the way it is. The other thing I tell law students and youngsters is that you're going to make mistakes. If you don't believe our current president, our current cabinet, leadership on the Hill, that they're not making mistakes, you have no idea how hard these decisions are. They're very, very hard, and you're going to make mistakes. Fortunately, you try to minimize those mistakes, you learn from those mistakes, and then you move on. And the reason it's important to move on, like if you're the president of the United States and you make a mistake, you can't fret about it. You can't agonize over it, because the next big decision for the American people is waiting right outside the Oval Office door. You've got to move on. So that's what life is about. You're going to make mistakes. You're going to stumble. You got to get up, moving forward. Always keep moving forward is what I tell our law students. Keep moving forward and always be leaning forward on your toes and reaching upward. Don't be settling back on your heels, on your tiptoes, reaching as high as you can so you can almost touch the face of God. Tell them that's where you want to be.
So we're going to open this up to some questions, so you all think of some pithy, interesting, exciting questions. Ask our honorable former Attorney General. But before we get there, we're in an armed conflict with Iran right now. You spent some time in Iraq, and it was a very different war. When the United States went to war there, we had allies, we had UN resolutions, we had all sorts of people on our side. We have one ally in that Iran is known, as far as I know, which is Israel. So do we need allies in the world? Can we go it alone, or do we need to have some help?
Yeah. First of all, we said one thing that I just want to correct for the record. There was no UN resolution for the Iraq War. And that's why some people believe, as a matter of domestic law, that war was lawful, because there was no authorization to use force from Congress. But in international law, use of force is only legal under two scenarios. One, in self-defense, or two, if there was a UN resolution authorizing use of force. So there was no UN resolution authorizing use of force in Iraq. And the view of many foreign policy experts really wasn't an act of self-defense in the invasion. So just for that. So what was your question?
Do we need allies?
Oh,
Do we need friends? Or can we go it alone?
it is so obvious. We're developing a mindset in our country where, because we have the strongest military, we can do whatever we want, and we don't need anyone else. And that's a terrible mistake. And I hear comments from time to time, well, the other countries, they've never stepped up to help us. NATO is a disaster. We don't need NATO. And yet the only time Article 5 of NATO has been invoked is when we were attacked on 9/11, and the members of NATO stepped up to work with us and fight in Afghanistan. Even if we have the most powerful military in the world, why wouldn't we accept the help of our friends and allies? They want to help us. They believe in the United States and what we stand for. They want to know that we will help them when they get into trouble. And I'd like to think we will. From the beginning of this country, certainly from the past, this past century, the United States has been a beacon of hope. When nations get into trouble, the United States steps in, and I worry that we're losing the confidence of people around the world. When I travel around, I talk to people from other countries. They ask me, "What's wrong with America? What are you guys doing?" And I understand the need to have other countries do their part in spending money, shoring up their defenses. But some of the rhetoric, I think, has been disrespectful. And the notion that we would really think about taking Greenland. Now I'm getting political, I'm sorry, but I worry about some of the rhetoric. It's not respectful, and it doesn't respect the sovereignty of other nations. Is what
It might come as a surprise to you, but I have more questions. But but before we get to those, can we open it up to the audience and please?
Okay, let's do it.
All right. Do I call you Mr. Gonzalez, Attorney Gonzalez? What do we do?
Oh, it's fine.
Are you like Attorney General forever, the way the president is the president forever? I don't know. Okay. My question is taking advantage of the fact that you had a position of power in some very interesting historical times and not wanting to get you in trouble, because I know anything you say, you may have to answer for later. But you mentioned that everybody makes mistakes. Well, in retrospect, what was a mistake that you made that if you had it to do all over again, you would have done different?
There's so many. Let me tell you. Without getting very specific, there were at least 3 legal decisions the lawyers presented to the president of the scope of his authority to do something, or the Supreme Court of the United States said no. The Supreme Court disagreed with us. Now, it's tough walking in the Oval Office and telling the President of the United States, "Mr. President, the advice that we gave you, you have the authority to do this. The court has just, we were wrong." But fortunately, he was the kind of client that, I mean, he didn't like it, but he would say something like, "That's what the courts are for, to tell us whether or not we're doing the right thing. And if they're with us, then we continue on. If they rule against us, then we change course." So, yeah, there were, very quickly some cases with respect to whether or not the Hamdi decisions, whether or not the President of the United States had the right. Mr. Hamdi was captured on the battlefield of Afghanistan carrying a rifle fighting against American forces. The president designated him as an enemy combatant. Mr. Hamdi was an American citizen and fighting against us. And he went to court challenging that designation, saying he hadn't been given due process. And in fact, Sandra Day O'Connor wrote the opinion, someone I very much respect. Sandra Day O'Connor administered the oath of office for me. And she had this famous line that a state of war is not a blank check for the President of the United States when it comes to the rights of American citizens. So we were wrong. She told us the president on his own cannot take an American citizen, like he could do it here in this country if it's to the contrary, take an American citizen and say, "You're an enemy combatant. We're going to lock you up and we're not going to give you a trial." So that was a Hamdi decision. That was the first time where in the history of this country, because this did not occur during World War I or World War II or the Vietnam War, where someone challenged the designation by the commander-in-chief in a time of war. And so we were surprised, but obviously we followed the direction of the court. But that's an example of where we made a mistake. And again, 3 or 4 other examples.
General, thanks for being with us today. Can you comment on the long-term effects, the current erosion of the rule of law, things like executive orders and unconstitutional disregard for international law, weaponization of the Justice Department, and things that we see every day that We just know we're not the way things used to be.
Well, that's a very easy question. No, I'm kidding. That's not. The rule of law, I'm often asked about what is the rule? I told the story recently. My wife liked it, so I guess I'll tell it again, or some other folks liked it. What is the rule of law? And I'm reminded of a story. This was from a commencement speech given by a gentleman named David Wallace. It's called "This Is Water." Some of you may have heard the story, but it's a story of two young fish swimming in the ocean, and this older fish swims by and looks at the two young fish and says, "Hey fellas, how's the water?" And the two young fish kind of just look at each other and they keep on swimming. And eventually one of them turns to the other and says, "What's water?" And the point is that the rule of law for all of us is our water. We live in it, we work in it, we succeed in it, but we don't think about it. It's just is there. The rights that we enjoy, the protections, it secures our physical security. It helps us realize economic prosperity, and it secures our personal liberties. That's what it does. We don't think about it, but it's there. There are ways in which we pollute that water, in which we erode trust in the rule of law. Every time a law firm in particular caves to something that the administration wants to do, because a law firm is worried about they're going to lose clients, even though it's a wrong thing to do, quite frankly, from my perspective, that's a pollution in the water. Every time a university changes its policies because it's afraid the administration is going to be upset, that is also a pollution in the rule of law. The loss of prosecutorial independence, the erosion of the norms that used to guide the Department of Justice, to me, is a major erosion in the rule of law. In that, there was times when I would have conversations with President Bush, and he would want to tell the Department of Justice what to do with respect to an investigation or prosecution, and I would tell him, Mr. President, you can't do that. You can't. People will lose confidence in the integrity of investigations and prosecutions if they believe that you, political actor, is telling the department who to investigate, who to prosecute. And so we never did that. But every time that happens, and there is even the appearance that prosecutions or investigations are based upon anything beyond the merits of a case, that's a pollution in the rule of law. And so I worry about it. We need to have confidence, all of us, that if you're going to be investigated or prosecuted, it's going to be because you've done something, you've committed a crime, and not for any other reason. And so I worry about that. I worry about the fact that thousands of prosecutors have quit the Department of Justice. Why? Because they can't stand it. Or two, because they've stood up to the administration and they've been fired. So I understand getting rid of bad prosecutors. Some people aren't doing their jobs. I get that. But the biggest travesty, I think, that I've encountered or seen is the fact that thousands of prosecutors were fired who successfully prosecuted the January 6th rioters. Now, we can disagree about whether or not what happened is a simple misunderstanding on January 6th, a peaceful demonstration. But individuals, court of law, under rules of evidence, were prosecuted, found guilty of committing crimes. And the president certainly has the authority to pardon. But from my perspective, those pardons represent a betrayal. And I think it created a serious erosion of confidence and trust in the Department of Justice because they did their job. Now these folks are being pardoned. And then you add on top of that, all these prosecutors are fired because they prosecuted these individuals. I can't tell you how much that hurt the morale within the Department of Justice. And so the president has the authority to do that. There's no question about it. But oftentimes there's a difference between what you can do and what you should do. And I just have a difference of opinion about the way all that was handled. But the rule of law is what makes all of us, all of you, successful. And and you're able to leave your home at night secure in your security, drive on the freeway knowing there are speed limits. You're able to enter into contracts, knowing those contracts are going to be enforced. You're willing to make investments. So, and then of course, you're able to go to Brentwood Baptist Church and get closer to God.
So a bit of a prognostication, if you forgive me for this, but sometime between now and January of 2029, Mr. Trump will leave office, and I'm curious what your thought.
How do you know?
Because then I'll be at the Capitol.
You're right.
I'll be at the Capitol.
I was being flippant. Of course, his term expires.
Yeah, he will go. He will leave politics in some form. What do you think the Republican Party will look like and be after he's gone?
I have no idea. I'm hopeful that a lot will depend upon the leadership of the party. My wife doesn't like me to say this, but I'm going to say it anyway. People ask me, I love my wife, Becky. She's the best. People ask me about being a Republican. And I said, you know what? I don't like to say I'm a Republican. I say I'm a Bushy. That's what I like to say. And I believe in a lot of the conservatives' beliefs and what we stood for back when Bush was in the White House and in Austin. I'm hopeful that we'll have people of integrity. That's the main thing, folks. You look at a character. What do we want to see in a president? You want to see someone who's courageous enough to make tough decisions. You want to see someone who's got the vision, positive vision, to say to all of you, I've been to the other side of the mountain. I know what is possible in our great country. Come with me. I will take you there. The journey may be tough. It may be hard, but I will take you. So we respond. Americans respond to a positive vision. I think, but integrity is the most important thing. Integrity in that person, character in that person. The problem is, I think it was Nathan Hale who said that reputation is what your friends think about you. Character is what only God and the angels know about you. It's hard sometimes to know a person's character and integrity until you put them in a position of power or in a position where, they get to exercise grace in some way. And so I think it's important that all of us look at a person's integrity in terms of making decisions about leadership of this country, not just Republicans, but also Democrats or any other party. Integrity in the people who put in office, like the mayor here, that's what you ought to be looking for.
So one final question. Are you staying in this area? Actually, it's two final questions.
Becky, are we staying in this area?
What's Becky saying?
Absolutely.
So the follow-up that, have you picked a Rotary Club to join yet?
I thought I had to be a member. Can I say one final thing? In doing these jobs, all of us, the men in particular, you have to have a partner. And I have been so fortunate in everything that I've done.
Becky can join too.
Oh, don't say. But anyway, I've been blessed that I've had someone by my side in some very difficult periods. And so that's been very, very important. And anything that I've accomplished is because of that.
So the Honorable Alberto Gonzalez, thank you very, very much for being with us, sir.
We have a gift for you. Last time you spoke with us, it was online, and I'm not sure you received a gift from us because I do remember that talk as well. So thank you for coming to speak with us. I would love for you to sign a book. We do read this to Brentwood Elementary School, so if you'll sign it, we'd love to share with them a little bit about your time with us. Okay, so it is 1:05. So I'm going to be very quick. Alberta, Rebecca, thank you. Nelson and the entire Red family, Jim, Jake, Chip, Kim, and Jamie, thank you. And Jamie's Jim's wife, if you did not know. My husband, thank you for coming. Derby, David, Lynn, Drew, Linda, Wilmer, and Brian. I think I got everybody. We are so glad that you guys were here today. Don't forget, if you want rodeo tickets, come and see me. I've got 4 for the 14th. Next week is Rick Wimberly, former actor, right? And former school board, current actor and former school board member here in Williamson County will be coming, as well as a RILA person to give us a little bit about RILA. So put the chairs, stacks of 8, and for the good of Rotary, you're good.